Welcome to FRC Media News for Thursday, August 6th, 2020. I'm Keith Tebow. This week, the Coogan administration is putting the finishing touches on a $280.8 million city budget. The state legislature is working overtime to complete its work before the end of the year. We speak with Senator Mike Rodrigues. The expanded Stop the Spread test sites in Fall River will be in place for one more week. How has it worked thus far? SRTA bus service has struggled under the weight of COVID-19. We tell you how the Transit Authority is still dedicated to its riders. And the city this week recognizes the stigma around drug addiction. We'll have those stories and more coming up. During our weekly conversation with Fall River Mayor Paul Coogan this morning, the mayor tells us his administration has completed work on a $280.8 million city budget, 2 months delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The mayor says even though the city has seen level funding in state aid, the city is still short, with spending up to $10.7 million over last year. The result of the spending plan he's presenting to the city council has no widespread layoffs and no additional increases in fees.
We are laying some people off in our senior centers because there's no guidance on when those will be reopened. I'm hoping it's a temporary layoff. I heard it was going to be phase 4, but phase 4 is also allegedly when we get a vaccine. So that could be November, December, January, February. We'll sit tight. The senior centers are still closed. So we're going to lay those people off for now. We let the unemployment benefits run to the end of July, but that's a handful, 6 people. But as far as traditional city workers, we're not going to be laying off any. We're not going to increase fees. We are going to leave positions open and try to patch through with that theory. I wish we could put draft on it still, but we're not allowed to do that. So we're going to go with the budget we have. It's going to have a few things in it that we have to address going down the road. But right now, we were under the obligation to submit a budget so the council would get to their work. I mean, they have a huge responsibility in this. And going forward, we're going to have a level funded budget for the city that may need some tweaking.
In other news from our discussion with the mayor this morning, the city has compiled the results of an online survey gauging people's opinions on the most important issues facing Fall River.
Of the 1,043 answers, 825 votes of the 1,000 put crime and public safety right at the top. So that's an area where we're keenly focused right now, trying to work with the chief, fill any gaps that may be caused by any kind of budget shortfalls, things that have gone on in the past. We're trying to work through a bunch of issues related to public safety that have one singular focus to make the city safer. Infrastructure. I can tell you that there's another chunk of money that's going to be getting distributed into the city and streets and sidewalks of Fall River that we're going to have a home for, making the streets and sidewalks safer and smoother for everybody. The schools, obviously, that's a big problem. We need to open these schools up to the best of our ability safely, and then addiction. But all of these things, and again, with the number one topic on everybody's mind for a long time was COVID. That ranked 6th in the survey. People have kind of stepped back from that a little bit. So there are things we can look at, it's a barometer of where we are. And I was appreciative that everybody took the time to fill it out.
Mayor Coogan says plans move ahead on the reopening of schools in the city. The state is looking for final plans from all local districts on Monday, August 10th.
Now, I've heard 2 active rumors on that I don't have any guidance on. The state's going to end up making the call for all the schools, and the other one is that we're going to be going to a hybrid plan. I think no matter what we do, this is fraught with danger. We want to, obviously, safety's got to become the number one thing. But I'm a firm believer that kids belong in school. They need that interaction. They need that instruction. They need that social networking that makes us all better people. But with that comes safety. Now, in Massachusetts, I had this conversation yesterday with the lieutenant governor. Not one case of COVID has been transferred from a young person, say under 16 to an adult. But that doesn't mean that they're not carriers, and it could happen in any minute. We're in a really, really dangerous position. It's another one of these great decisions that come to a mayor in a city and a superintendent, Matt Malone. I believe the final decision still rests with him, but obviously he'll work with the committee to make the best decision for the city of Fall River. And it's coming quick. Even though school might have been delayed a couple weeks, we're going to have to come up with a plan, and that's going to be focused on safety and instruction.
The Massachusetts state legislature is extending its session to deal with bills it failed to complete due to delays resulting from COVID-19. State Senator Michael Rodrigues oversees the guiding of legislation through the Senate as chair of the Ways and Means Committee. The senator says during this election year, it's important to keep the focus on any bills passed during the extension narrow and only on matters of utmost importance.
It is my strong hope and desire and recommendation to the Senate President that we only take up bills during this time period, which is special and unique, for three purposes. One is to pass a budget. All right, we need to pass a budget. We need to put our fiscal house to bed once and for all. We still have to close out fiscal year 20 through a final deficiency budget, and we have to pass a full FY21 budget. One. Two is any sort of COVID emergency related legislation. Back in March, April, and even into May, we passed a number of bills, pieces of legislation that were as a result of this COVID emergency. There are none on the floor. We don't see any in front of us, but you never know what's going to come. And if it's a COVID-related emergency, we should go back into session. And last are the conference committees. We have a number of these conference committees, including police reform, including the economic development bond bill. We have the transportation bond bill. We have these conference committees that are still working, that if those conference reports get completed, we should come back into session to do that. Other than that, I'm not looking to complete or to do any other pieces of legislation that did not make the July 31st deadline.
When it comes to the state budget, the legislature has passed a temporary spending plan to cover expenses through the month of October. In addition, the legislature and Governor Baker have made a commitment to cities and towns to keep its local aid to governments and schools at or slightly above FY 2020 levels.
We could not enact a 3-month interim budget without some level of certainty for our local communities. So we made a commitment to level fund what's known as UGA, or Unrestricted General Government Aid. That's a check that the state cuts right to our municipalities for their general use. In the city of Fall River, it's about $23 million. And we committed to level fund plus inflation for Chapter 70, which is the amount of money that the states provide our cities and towns to provide for K through 12 education. That's in the neighborhood of about $140 million for the city of Fall River. How did we do that? We did that by making it very clear that those two accounts are our priorities. Helping our local municipalities, that it's where the rubber meets the road, and it's where most of our citizens get their day-to-day government services, be they education, be they public safety, police and fire, be they highway and public works, maintaining our roads and bridges, local boards of health that really, really overburdened during this pandemic. We made a commitment that that's our priority, and we're going to budget around that.
Among the items in a conference committee of the House and Senate is a police reform bill. Senator Rodrigues says those who support and oppose the bill have been passionate in their opinions, but it's time to address deficiencies of how state and local police are responsible to the constituents they serve.
You know, Massachusetts is one of only a few states where our police officers are not credentialed. You go through the academy when you're a young police officer, and you never get continuing education in order to keep your job. It's not that way if you're an insurance agent. It's not that way if you're a real estate agent. It's not that way if you're a plumber or electrician or a teacher. You know, you need to have constant training and education and to get re-credentialed. That will happen under both versions of the bill. There's also major state police reforms. We saw what happened last year, over the last 2 years, where 18 state police troopers were indicted and charged and found guilty of fraud, of lying on the hours, getting paid for hours they don't work. Guess what? Every single police officer is still on the job. Every single police officer is still getting paid, and every single police officer is still going to get a very good pension when they retire. There's obviously no accountability when it comes to our police officers. So that's something that we wanted to get our hands around. We know how controversial it is. Many of these bills had public hearings over a year ago. There's been lots of debate, lots of discussion about it. So both the House and the Senate and the governor, all three, Democrat, Republican, bipartisan, said this has to change. It is now in a conference committee. It will all work out. They always do. I'm an eternal optimist. I know that things get worked out in these conference committees. And at the end of the day, the legislature will pass. The governor will do his thing by either vetoing it or sending it back with an amendment or signing it. And at the end of the day, we will have a police department whom we all love and respect.
Another item before legislators this summer is a bond bill that could potentially provide $1 million in funding to help with capital improvements within Fall River's Flint neighborhood.
Roadway improvements, sidewalk improvements, housing improvements, cleaning up brownfields, if there's contaminated areas, cleaning up blight, raising old abandoned buildings. It's not operating money, so it's any sort of investment, because we are borrowing this money, so we are paying it back over 25 to 30 years, but it's an expense that will pay dividends for 25 or 30 years. So it's long-term capital investments.
You have one more week to get a free COVID-19 test as part of the state's expanded Stop the Spread testing program here in Fall River. Our Denise Pumaguaye spoke with officials at the Health First Family Care Center on its experiences in hosting the program and its importance to the community.
How the free testing for coronavirus COVID-19 has been going on at Health First facilities.
We've been running the program now for a few weeks. It's the Stop the Spread program, which is the state initiative. We've been offering it pretty much to anybody who is interested, regardless if they're a patient. The only request is that you have to be a resident of the state of Massachusetts. So the way the process works is a person will call, we'll book them on the schedule. We typically do it between 1 and 3 p.m. every day for right now. And they come in, they drive up in their car or walk up on the scheduled appointment time. And we swab their nose. It's one small swab into each nostril that then gets sent off to the state. And the laboratory typically turns around the results. Hopefully now, there's been a backlog, but hopefully now within 24 to 36 hours. And then once we get those results, we notify the patient, let them know, if they're positive or negative. If they're positive, they get a follow-up visit with us or get it sent to their primary care provider at another facility. And then if they're negative, they receive education from one of our nurses.
The free initiative started on July 10th, and so far it will run until next Friday, August 14th. What has the volume of patients been during this time?
Anywhere from, I would say 20 to 30 patients a day.
I think it's been a wide range of people, different ethnicities. I'd say it's representative of the community of Fall River.
I would say that they shouldn't be nervous and that the test itself is very quick. It's painless, and it's a great test if you really need to know if you're traveling or if anybody like you was sick in your family. It's definitely a great tool to use.
This test is to treat and maybe help you, but more so, it's help those around you.
As the region continues to recover from the impacts of COVID-19, the local business community is beginning to get to a new but hopefully temporary normal. One South Coast Chamber co-CEO Michael O'Sullivan says 1 month into the state's Phase 3 of reopening, most local businesses are faring as well as can be expected.
Adapting, the answer is definitely yes. They're adapting. Are they happy? Not all. Many are still struggling. but but it's good news that it has moved along. But they are definitely adapting. For the restaurants, being able to have outdoor dining has helped a lot. But they're still struggling, and there's still great concern about what happens moving forward. Is there going to be a phase 2 of the virus and that sort of thing? People are cautiously optimistic.
O'Sullivan, along with co-CEO Rick Kidder, believes local businesses that are still struggling may be looking to Washington for another round of financial assistance.
I think at this point, nobody would deny that more assistance is necessary. And what we're seeing in Washington right now is sort of the typical Washington dance, where we're not disagreeing about whether or not there needs to be help. It's what's the nature of that help and how much is it? And so we had, and I think we'd talked on this show before about the challenge of the $600 stipend, and for some small businesses trying to get their people back, it was difficult when, quite frankly, they were doing better with that additional $600 than they were doing when they were working. But going from $600 to zero is falling off a cliff. So I think Congress they get that, and they're trying to figure out exactly what that formula should be so that you can incentivize people to go back to work while at the same time support those who are unemployed and are likely to be unemployed. The one thing we know for certain is that as much unemployment as has surfaced within the COVID environment, not all of those jobs are coming back. And since not all of those jobs are coming back, we're going to have a larger unemployment picture for quite some time. And people are going to need to survive in that process. So we know that Congress is working on it, but it's a bit of a pull and tug at the moment. And we'll figure it out quickly, I hope, because businesses need that assistance, individuals need that assistance, people on unemployment need some assistance as well.
We also have some businesses that are actually struggling to hire people. We've got one major employer in Fall River who has hired as many as 85 people, but still needs another 20 or 25 people, and they can't find them, over the last couple months because people don't want to come back to work because of the $600 they were making more money. So there's a challenge on both sides in that respect. And to Rick's point, I do agree that we need to do something to go from $600 and phase it down to zero. But there are businesses that are still struggling to find people because many people didn't want to go back to work.
We'll have more right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Surgical Technologist, Charlton Memorial Hospital, located at 363 Highland Avenue, is looking for a full-time OR surgical technologist, responsible for OR preparation, instrument supply and assembly, maintenance of sterile fields, hands-off instruments, and initiation of counts throughout procedures. Job number 138-33699. Carside delivery person, Applebee's, located at 311 Plymouth Avenue, is seeking a full-time Carside delivery person to deliver customer food orders Carside for pickup. Job number 138-34017. Legal Secretary, the law office of Frank D. Camara, located at 70 South Main Street, has an immediate need for a part-time legal secretary to provide administrative support in general law practice management. Job number 138-34418. Bristol Community College, located at 777 Ellsbury Street, is in need of the following full and part-time positions. Women's Soccer Assistant Coach, job number 138-37388. Senior Community Outreach Counselor, job number 138-37976. Accent Care Home Health, located at 275 Martine Street, Suite 109, also is in need of the following full and part-time positions. Hospice Consultant, job number 138-36974. Clinical Supervisor RN, job number 138-37213. For more information on these or other positions, visit Mass Hire Job Quest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. The Southeastern Regional Transit Authority has had to make some adjustments to its service as it continues to deal with a decline in riders since the onset of COVID-19. SRTA Administrator Eric Russo says once the pandemic shut down the region, levels dipped from between 10,000 to 12,000 riders per day down to 2,000. As more people have gone back to work, the number of trips has rebounded, but concerns linger.
We're probably closer to around 5,000 trips per day. We introduced a new service. We're calling it the Intercity Express. It's a bus running between New Bedford and Fall River that's going on 195, so it doesn't stop in between at all. And that's certainly helped with people sort of being able to get between both cities and helped reduce some of the congestion that we were seeing on the traditional intercity Route 9 bus. So, we are seeing areas where it's ticking up, but I think people's habits have changed, and obviously, certainly dining habits have changed. I think that people were more open to just running down the street and grabbing something at the local store. Now people are being a little bit more planful, where they're making a trip, if they can, just once a week and get all their provisions or however it may be. But that has an impact and a trickle-down effect on our ridership.
With the decrease in riders, Mr. Russo says SRTA has had to take a look at maximizing all its routes across the 10 communities it serves. That has resulted in some changes that will take effect on August 24th.
We were trying to identify areas in our system where there's redundant service. And the Fall River Route 6 runs hourly right now and is largely exactly the same service that the local intercity bus is operating. So it was an opportunity for us to not eliminate service to a corridor, but get a bus that we can use elsewhere, when we have peak needs. It's not an easy decision to make. It's certainly not necessarily written in stone that it'll last forever. Right now, this is just a COVID, a COVID pilot that we need to try and see if that'll free up some assets for us. And same thing in New Bedford, we had two buses that were duplicating what a third bus was already doing, or a third route was already doing in different ways. So, again, that's a hard decision to make. People are used to riding their bus from where they normally get on to where they want to go, and having to make an extra transfer downtown is hard if that's the way that somebody needs to make a trip. But if we hear loud and clear from the riding public that we need that service back, that's something we can absolutely do. Again, this isn't a budget issue. It's an issue with having enough physical vehicles available to us.
Thanks to a $20 million appropriation from the CARES Act, SRTA has not had to lay off employees. Russo says there's also a commitment not to raise fares regardless of how bad circumstances may get.
I mean, we're not in a place where we would be able to raise fares. We actually just conducted a survey of our ridership finished up in January, where we call it a fare equity analysis to see if our fare is in line with our peer systems and in line with the demographics of our communities. And we're not in a position, and our communities are not in a position where we could ask our patrons to pay any more for their fares. So it's a challenge. We have to be creative, whether it's coming up with a new way to allow more access. Something that we'd like to see if we're paying fares in the future is to do something called pay as you go or fare capping, where you might be able to set up an account, and every time you ride the bus, you're kind of earning credit towards a monthly pass. So you don't have to pay that $40 up front. If you pay $1.50, eventually it will roll up to that $40 pass, and you might be able to effectively ride for no additional charge for the last 7-10 days of a month. things like that. Something that helps more access is really what we're going to be focusing on.
The City of Fall River this week sponsored an event to mark August as Overdose Awareness Month. As part of a flag-raising ceremony outside Government Center, Joan Paquette shared a story about her daughter Melanie, who was a victim of drug abuse. She spoke on the theme for this year's events that are sponsored by Recover Fall River, ending the stigma around addiction.
We all tried desperately to have someone understand Melanie was in crisis, right up until the night before she died, and no one listened. I told the police and paramedics that night what was going to happen. I was told, along with Melanie's fiance, that people who threaten suicide do not do it. To go home, not accept her calls, and not to antagonize her any further, or we could be arrested. Believe me, every day I wonder where I would be today if someone had just listened. The following morning, I received the call that I had feared for so long. My baby was gone. I made a promise to Melanie that day to make sure she did not die in vain. I tell Melanie's story in hopes of how those who still suffer are perceived and treated. It's time to stop the stigma. All who have gone too soon and those who are still fighting are somebody's someone, and we love them with every fiber of our being.
We'll have more FRC Media news after this.
Thank you for considering a homeless pet today. I hope you enjoy what you're about to see, and as always, please feel free to contact the shelter before coming down to make sure that the pets you're viewing are still available for adoption. We can be reached at 508-677-9154.
And today we have Coraline. She's a 4-year-old cat who's been here for about 2 weeks. She has a medium-sized coat. She's very sweet and loves attention. She's one of those cats that'll come up to you, meow, and asking for attention if you're not giving it to her at all times. But she also likes to nap and lay back from time to time too. She gets along with other cats. She's in a communal room, walking around with them, and she is able to coexist and interact with them pretty well. But she prefers humans. She loves being with people. She loves being held and cuddled. And she's all around a very good girl who's very sweet. If you'd like to come meet her, you can come down to Forever Paws Animal Shelter at 300 Linwood Street. And as usual, she'd love to meet you. She loves making friends.
Today we have Bear. She is 1.5 years. Not too sure what her breed is. I want to guess she might have Jack Russell Terrier in her. She was transferred from West Virginia. She is pretty active, so she'd probably do better in an active home. She loves to go for walks. She's very agile. So agility classes might benefit her. She's very playful. She loves squeaky toys. She doesn't really know any commands. She is treat motivated. She gets along with cats and dogs. And if you like to go for hikes, she would make a great hiking partner as well. If you want to come down and meet Bear, I know she'd love to meet you. We are at 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
That's all for this edition of FRC Media News. Please check out our website, frmedia.org, for all the latest local Fall River news and information, as well as an update on our Channel 95 program schedule. You can watch this program Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Fridays at 5:30 p.m. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Thursday.